Welcome back, everyone, to the Four Score Sports Podcast, your play-by-play source. I'm Christian, and I'm joined here with Spencer and Nicholas today. Unfortunately, Michael will be out as he is on tour with his band. However, that will not stop us, as today we will crack down on topics regarding the Erik Karlsson trade in the hockey world and the Matt Dillon free agency signing. Then we'll crack down on the Shane McClanahan injury that has possibly put him out for the whole MLB season, or at least the remainder of it, and the Tim Anderson and the Jose Ramirez fight that happened a few days ago. And then we will segue right into the Anthony Davis extension for the Los Angeles Lakers. And finally, we will tackle a top 100 list for the NFL and gradually talk about if lists in the sports world are reliable. So let's go ahead and get started. So the Erik Karlsson trade is our biggest story that we're going to swing out with today. If you haven't heard yet, Erik Karlsson has been dealt to the Pittsburgh Penguins in a three-way trade with San Jose and Montreal. Erik Karlsson, Rem Pitlick, Dylan Hamiluk, and 2026 third-round draft pick go to Pittsburgh. San Jose then, in return, gets a 2024 first-round draft pick, Mikael Granlund, Jan Rutta, and Mike Hoffman. And with Montreal being in the mix for intentions of salary retention, they receive a 2025 second-round draft pick. Jeff Petrie makes his return to Montreal, and Casey DeSmith and Nathan Legare all follow Jeff Petrie. So, immediately my thoughts about this trade was San Jose got fleeced.
I'd say so.
Pretty
That's
bad.
Reliable.
You could have gotten a lot more out of Erik Karlsson. I feel like the original asking price was, I believe it was 3 firsts and at least a good prospect or a good player.
3 firsts and they only got 1?
They only got 1, and they, somehow Dubas converted that into sending Mikael Granlund, Jan Rutta, and Mike Hoffman.
I think when you look at it, you really take a look at the trade is a bunch of it's like a bunch of busy work that you'd get in high school. Like it's nothing significant really going around. I mean, you could take a look at Mikael Granlund. Like, he's not a very productive player, at least at this point in his career. He's had a few good seasons, but nothing really of note to really equate to offsetting the 3 first-round draft picks that they originally wanted. And I don't think the other guys really get it done either. So I do agree that San Jose does get fleeced here. I think it's a bit of a weird trade here. I didn't expect a 3-team trade. I just thought it was going to be just a 1 team for 1 team. So to see a bunch of players go everywhere, Pittsburgh definitely paid for Karlsson, but San Jose did not get nearly anything of note in return.
Now, my question is, with that trade going down and Karlsson leaving San Jose, does that put them in a rebuild situation? Because I know they haven't been the best in recent years. Does this set them up for a decent future in the next 2 or 3 years? Or does this kind of, beach them for the next 5 or 6?
So that's a good question. And for the past few seasons, you're seeing core guys from that 2016 Stanley Cup team from San Jose start to leave. I mean, really, all that's left there is, Logan Couture? That's pretty much it.
Sounds about right.
So what I'm thinking for this trade is that Mikael Granlund, Jan Rutta, and Mike Hoffman, they're not necessarily nobodies. They're serviceable players. But back to your question, I believe that San Jose will use these players during the rebuild and have time for prospects such as Thomas Bordelot to develop, and have some of their a couple of younger guys that around Bordelot also develop in time. And I believe that at least Mikael Granlund, will see his way out of San Jose within the next few seasons. But
okay.
Yeah, San Jose has pretty much fully accepted that rebuild process, and but this could have gone a lot better. If you're Mike Greer, you gotta really look at this trade and gotta reflect on that. You gotta say this is not my best move.
Definitely, if I'm a San Jose fan, I'm pissed. I am upset about this because not only did we not get the return we wanted to, it just puts us in a bad spot for a couple of years.
I agree. I think what the Sharks are doing here is that they're trying to keep. I don't know why they would do this, but I think it sounds like they're trying to keep their team respectable while also rebuilding. And we've seen this from many teams that try to keep themselves afloat while also trying to rebuild. It just ends up being they just come short every single time. They don't fully get it, and it just falls apart. We've seen that with the Flyers recently, is that they keep some of their big names on, and they just don't quite ever get it done. And so I think the Sharks are heading towards that direction where they're just gonna keep getting mediocre, and they're gonna let their prospects develop, but they're not gonna really have the prospects all develop at the same time, and to the point where they're gonna have a really good squad. I think getting Hoffman, who's a 33-year-old player, as well as Granlund, who's 30, doesn't quite give you much of a younger core really to build around. So I think maybe going for someone a little bit younger than Hoffman and Granlund is definitely a good idea. Obviously, Pittsburgh is not the youngest team in the league, especially after getting Karlsson. It's a little tough to watch. I don't know if I necessarily feel bad for San Jose because they had plenty of teams looking for a solid number one defenseman who has enough to pay. So I don't know if I feel bad that San Jose has just gotten fleeced. But Montreal kind of sneaks out of there with a good little reward, personally.
Yeah, they get Jeff Petrie back, and again, also a serviceable defenseman. Someone can eat up minutes. Casey DeSmith being the name that pops out for me, at least. His time in Pittsburgh wasn't not great, not terrible, but maybe a change of scenery for him will go ahead and get his play going. And I'm not so sure about Nathan Legare here, but a second-round draft pick being paid a second-round draft pick for salary retention, that's pretty good. But yeah, just if I was really expecting a good trade between San Jose and Pittsburgh, and that's just not it. Just didn't happen. So I was actually kind of I was really excited to see what Karlsson would have fetched for San Jose, but Mike Gurr didn't do his best there. So moving on, we are going to take on Matt Dumba's new contract with Arizona. I believe he's there for a year.
Just a year.
Just a year at $3.5 million.
3.9, so pretty much $4 million.
3.9. Again, he's a like everyone we talked about. I'm just going to keep using this word, serviceable. Top four defenseman that can eat up minutes pretty well. It's just the thing is with Matt Dumba, at least what I've noticed is that he can he's a penalty not a penalty machine, but he can be liable at times. He has his moments, and maybe this time in Arizona he can make himself discipline himself a little better, and hopefully he can get picked up by someone else, because I feel like Matt Dumba still got a little charge in him to serve on a good team. So yeah,
I agree. I think I miss the very old Minnesota Wild where he was putting up 50 points as a defenseman and staying out of the penalty box and actually being a pretty solid defender who's eating minutes. Actually probably one of the more high minute eaters in the league that I've seen. And so I think when you take a look at where he's at in his career, he's not getting any younger. He's 28, and he's very much regressing in his point totals, which I know is not the only thing that matters for a defenseman, but it definitely goes a long way. I think also he was injured he's been injured before. I think in 2022 he was injured in 2021. And I think when you have an injured season and you really need to bounce back because you're at the end of your contract, you take a 1-year deal somewhere else to really prove that you're good and you're able to bounce back from injury and officially go above and beyond. I think it's important to be able to sign that 1-year deal. And going to Arizona, I mean, I guess it makes sense. I don't know that it necessarily makes sense to prove you can put up points because, a lot of defensemen, they'll get a lot of assists. And I think that the fact of the matter is he's not going to a team that's very deep in defensemen. So I think it'll give him a chance to shine and really show that he can eat minutes, be a productive, have some production offensively that he's been able to do in the past, and hopefully stay out of the penalty box. He's done a good job in his early part of his career, but last year was kind of rough. He had 81 penalty minutes, which is not a good look, especially for a defenseman.
Yeah, that's yeah. We're just gonna have to wait till the season for that to completely develop. And just to gloss over the rest here, there are still a couple of big name free agents out there, as we talked about in our last show at the tail end of our last show actually. Jonathan Taves, who's still a UFA, probably don't expect him to play again with that unfortunate illness that he's got. Patrick Kane is still yet to be.
Really?
Patrick Kane is still yet to be signed. Actually, we have another name here to actually talk about. I actually did almost slip my mind was Tom Wilson getting his contract out in Washington. That's what contract is that?
It's a big payday for Tom Wilson. It's a 7-year, $6.5 million annual average. That's a pretty big contract for Tom Wilson. I really just haven't been impressed with Tom Wilson. I mean, it's going to take him all the way to age 37 season to get through that contract. I think once you're at 30, it's when you stop, getting 7-year deals, in my opinion. I think that's something you get either right out of your restricted free agency or maybe a few years after, that you get these long deals to carry you into your 30s. So seeing Tom Wilson, a player who's, he's more of a bruise him up, really just put someone in the boards, deliver some hits. It's your big guy, and a fighter too, big fighter. I think it's a lot of money for someone who's not necessarily gonna be the most productive offensively, but he's been productive offensively before. So
yeah. Well, here I'll put this in just for thought. You have Washington, who's fallen off after the 2018 Cup, but I feel like the franchise's main goal is to get Ovechkin above Gretzky's goal record, which is he's almost there. And you need someone like Tom Wilson to really bully these other players, to give Ovechkin that space. I'm not so sure how Washington runs their lines there, but assuming Wilson's on the ice and giving Ovechkin that space, he can really help achieve the franchise goal of getting Ovechkin up to past Gretzky's goal record. But also, Tom Wilson, he's basically become like this fan favorite for Washington. So it's more of like I see it more of like as I'll say PR move, kind of. More of like, you got the Wilson terrorizing the Rangers a couple of years ago, where remember that picture where he's like standing in the box with his jersey off, that was really funny. So I think Washington's really paying more for that, and like while Washington kind of dwells in the basement for a little while, at least get Ovechkin up to where he wants to pass that goal record. So I think that's where that's the direction that.
So how many goals out is he from Gretzky's record?
That is a good question. I don't have the exact numbers. Do you have it there, Nick?
I don't. I can pull it up though.
Yeah.
He's probably very close.
I feel like I've been hearing that for last season or two, and this is no disrespect to Ovechkin. Obviously, I understand what he's doing is great. Personally, I don't know how far away he is, so I thought he would be there
He's
already.
like 90 goals
I think
off.
he's
90?
72 goals off. He has 822 goals, and Wayne Gretzky has 894 goals. So, within a few years, 2 years probably that could be done.
Yeah.
Especially
You don't think he could do it this season?
Nobody's scoring
No.
70
No, he's not.
goals.
In this modern NHL, you're not scoring 70 goals. And
especially as a sniper.
I know you're just asking a question, but like, no way in hell is someone scoring over.
Like, I just don't know.
No, not over 60.
Okay.
Especially at this point in his career.
Yeah, I know he's kind of on the older end. Like he's past.
He's really older. He's 37.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know he's past that bell curve of the prime. He's getting there. Obviously, that's why he's so close to the record. He's been playing for God knows how long. So I just thought he would have hit it by now. But obviously, we're recognizing that Gretzky's record is insane. That somebody's actually clawed like within a season or two.
Yeah, he's
3 at the longest.
Basically, within arm's reach, like expect to hear about this within like 2-3 years that he will pass it.
Because I know Gretzky still holds the points record, right?
Yeah, the points record is not getting touched. The assist record is not getting touched.
But it's the goals that's a different story.
As
talked about.
Yeah, so like, what's the point record again? It's like 2,000.
Oh,
Wasn't it
high.
2,200 or some? Or is it like way higher than that?
I really should know this off the top of my head.
I know it's
Are you
2,000
talking
for
about points
sure.
or assists?
Points. Assists will show.
Because it's like
he is
over, about
Where is it?
900 away from Yager, who Yager played very long, a long career. So he's almost 1,000 points over
above the next
second
person.
place, Jaromir Yager. Yes.
That's
and
nuts.
Yager's played for more than 30 years.
Yeah.
What?
Still playing, by the way.
What?
Still plays professional hockey
Still
out in
plays
Europe.
for-
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part doesn't surprise me. It's the fact he's been playing for 30 plus years.
Oh yeah, Yager. What, from the 80s?
Because what?
Right?
Because
Yeah.
Brady hitting season 20 was insane. When Jerry Rice hit season 20, that everybody lost their mind. LeBron hitting season 20 is, everybody's going crazy and all. What? 30 years?
Here's to answer your question. His first game was in 1990.
Oh my God.
His last NHL game was in 2018.
What?
Yep.
24 years.
That's a 24-year
That's
career.
insane.
And he hasn't professionally retired yet, so he could theoretically
Currently
come
come
back.
back.
Yep.
51 years old.
He's still technically a free agent.
Dude, okay, who in the right mind is signing a 51-year-old?
If I'm not mistaken, he played. Well, okay. Here's the fun thing about Yager, right? Yager owns a team in Czechia.
Like, actually, like, is an owner, or are you saying
Hold on. He owns a team in Czechia.
Okay.
He is the general manager of that Czech team,
Okay.
and plays for them.
What the hell?
I'm pretty sure there's no other story. in
Could you
sports.
imagine getting fired by one of your teammates?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that?
You had a bad game. Just pack it up and go home.
you
You're
get
gone,
off.
buddy.
You get off the ice.
He gets on the bench.
Go back to your day job.
It gets on the bench and looks over to your left. It's like, you're traded.
And he goes, I didn't play 25 years in the NHL just to see this
Just to
on
see this
the ice.
absolute
This
dog
is
shit.
awful.
Absolute
If I was
trash.
told that by Jaromir Yager, I'd be like, okay, and I'd just walk away. Dude, I would hang up the skates and I'd go
retire
back to being a
immediately.
tax collector. Like
That it's like, it reminds me of that. Was it Czechia? Was it that the electrician pitcher for the WBC?
Oh yeah, what was what was it? The Israel team or something like
No,
that?
it was like Czech. They were Czech, or they were.
I don't remember what team, but I do remember they just
Did
had
they
a
go
bunch
by
of
Czech
guys.
Republic? I don't want to be insensitive. I don't remember.
Czechia, Czech Republic.
Okay,
Whatever.
because I know if you say the forbidden Czech blank, like they kind of go.
Oh yeah.
I also found out that recently, while we're talking about international teams, I found out that the Canadian Olympic team, their first ever year at the Olympics, their entire team was filled with a bunch of guys who were working like 9-to-5 jobs who like had to quit their jobs just to be able to go to the Olympics, to go 1-2 and lose.
I'd be ashamed.
And they just kept playing. I mean, a lot of them were like in their like late 30s. Like, I mean, it wasn't like.
Well, there's your first problem.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like not a bunch of MLB players.
30-year-old electricians playing hockey.
Here's a fun would you rather, though. Would you rather be stuck at your 9-to-5 dead-end job, or would you have the chance to quit your 9-to-5 job to play for the Olympics?
I would
100%
play for the Olympics, regardless
like how these guys did.
Regardless of win-lose, I would 100% play the Olympics.
I mean, winning one game in the Olympics,
because not only
that's awesome.
Not only that, you got to represent your country at a national level and potentially scored and won a game. Granted, you didn't do well, but you have to think about the circumstances you're in. This is like. I'm assuming you run into teams like the U.S. and Russia, or even
This is baseball.
Oh, we're talking baseball. Are we talking? Okay, so you're running into the U.S.
Well, if the
or
Canadian
Mexico.
national team was at the Olympics their first ever time, I'd assume that they own everyone because it's their sport.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking like.
No, we were talking about baseball.
Okay,
baseball.
It was an awkward transition, but yeah, I understand. So think about it: playing a sport that I care about, representing the team I love, and ending up playing that absolute Captain America, like Avengers level threat of Team USA or Team Mexico. Like,
yeah.
Could you imagine, this is my first time pitching since high school, and the batting lineup is Mookie, Trey Turner, and Kyle Schwarber is the top 3?
Yikes.
I'd shit my pants. I'm sorry.
It's over.
My ERA is infinity because I'm hanging it up after I get a Schwarb bomb doinked off the top deck.
Speaking of Schwarb, he had 2 home runs today. Anyway.
But I'm just saying, if Trey's got a home run, Mookie's got a home run, and Schwarber just hits it into the upper
just
deck.
Just got 3 for 3 with 3 bombs, 450.
I'm hanging up the cleats and I'm quitting. I'm saying, you know what? I played professional baseball at some point, and nobody's gonna question me because if I ever give them tape, they're just gonna feel sad for me.
And it's all right. It's just all right. But going back to the whole Tom Wilson thing, because I actually really wanted to ask. Why? Okay, I understand Tom Wilson's he's a career Capital, right? He played there his entire career or something like that.
I'm 99% sure.
He's known for being a Capital, for sure. So you want to bring back those guys that are good for your team. The fan base knows them.
Good morale.
Fan base loves them. But the question really is like, why would you not go for a guy that might be a little bit better in feeding the puck to Ovechkin? Because you sign him to a 7-year deal, and that's a big cap hit. What was it, $6.5 million?
Yeah, you said $6.5 million.
I think maybe, like Josh Bailey's even a better guy for assists. I mean, he doesn't score many goals, but he puts up a lot of assists. He's cheaper, and you can get him for a short, maybe 2-3 year deal until he hits that mark, and he goes off to a different team, or you trade him, or maybe they could still get him and play him or something. But I don't think I'm putting Tom Wilson. I don't know if Tom Wilson's my guy to, in good faith, give Ovechkin that win. But that's just personally like how I'm looking at it. There's other guys in free agency that are looking for contracts that could probably help Ovechkin get to that goal a little bit easier.
Yeah, I agree. There are definitely younger, better players who can feed the puck to, those star guys who want him to reach the goal. But in reality, wouldn't that come down to a chemistry thing? Like, he's known for being a Capital. He's been around Ovechkin for how many years? The team comp works well. So, like, why break it up and throw somebody new into the mix? Granted, younger probably will play better once they hit a prime. But I just think when you've got that PR move and you've also got the chemistry that's already built there, I see no reason breaking it up.
I don't see a reason breaking it up either. But my only thing is that, and this is not a knock on Ovechkin. Ovechkin's a very simple game. Ovechkin's like, you feed me the puck while I'm just right outside the point, and I'm slapping that thing so hard into the net that it's like, that's it. You literally give him a pass into his wheelhouse, and he puts it in the net. Any NHL player should be able to do that. So I don't think it's necessarily a chemistry thing, but I think it's more of just like somebody who can get him that puck more reliably, and maybe someone who's going to be able to draw some penalties, because Ovechkin scores so many
Power play.
goals.
There you go.
Because all you have to do is get him alone, you sauce that pass over, it's in the net. There are no goaltenders reacting to that.
Nope.
No goaltender stopping that. And I dare any defenseman to try to put any body part in front of that shot. It's going over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I've
you're
seen
dying.
people
You
try,
will
and
die.
I've seen people break their legs doing
You
it.
will die. There's
like,
no...
17 years and no one's been able to figure it out yet. So,
And that's why he's creeping up on that doorstep.
well, I mean, like, you take a look at these forward lines. You still have Kuznetsov. You got Backstrom. You got Oshie. If you want to throw Sonny Milano on the other wing, you could go ahead and do that too. Sonny Milano, I feel like he's still on the up and up. You got Anthony Mantha, you got Dylan Strome. So, like, you really, like, you can blend up these lines, and you still have decently reliable puck feeders over to Ovechkin. I think they're doing just fine. But although, like, yeah, for sure, you're to your point, younger players who can feed the puck over to Ovechkin more reliably would work. But yeah, I feel like I said, I feel like the Capitals are just really accepted the dwelling basement role of the league right now. At least one of those teams.
Didn't they just win the Cup, like, not too long ago?
2018.
Well, I thought it was 19. It was the same year as the Nationals.
2019 was the Blues.
Am I...
You're thinking of the Nationals.
Right, Washington had too good of a success for that 1 year, and
Yeah.
then has been poverty since.
Yeah, but yeah, like I was saying, like, the Capitals have like accepted that they're in a low time. Just they're really grouping up all their energy to just get Ovechkin past 892, and I feel like Wilson still got some production in the tank. Should he go ahead and discipline himself a little more, but that's that's not what the Capitals are having him around here for. But I think it's an okay move. Like it's a team that's caring about its fan base. Keeping Wilson around is like one of the franchise players that's like not a scorer, but more of like an enforcer. Well, yeah, an enforcer. So
I just have never seen really good reaction from having an enforcer on your first line or on your first two lines, because like I know he's capable of producing a lot of points and scoring, but the fact that he's also someone who's just gonna beat people up all the time, I don't know if that's necessarily something you want to reliably have on that first line. But I understand what they're going for, and they're trying to have it be like a kind of like a legacy thing where it's like Ovechkin surrounded by his lifelong teammates. Because who else? Kuznetsov is on that.
Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Oshie's still there.
So you've got guys that have been around Ovechkin for multiple years. So I think it makes sense. I like it. I mean, I would prefer other players if I'm a fan of the Capitals, but I get what they're doing, and you bring up a really good point, and that's really all they're really trying to do, because I don't know how well that they're going to be pushing for playoffs this season, because I don't think last season was that good. I think Ovechkin will retire as soon as he breaks that record, and then you got to start looking who's going to lead this franchise next, because I don't think anyone on that team is leading that franchise, really.
Yeah, no, it will totally be a new era for Washington the moment Ovechkin hangs him up, because you also got Kuznetsov, Backstrom, all following right behind him, and Wilson as well. So, I don't want to say the Capitals will fall into irrelevancy, but you got a lot of players leaving right after Ovechkin leaves too. But yeah, nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on here. News breaking today as of August 8th, 2023, for the Tampa Bay Rays. Shane McClanahan has suffered an injury that has possibly put him out for the rest of the season.
That's gotta hurt, man. That sucks.
It's a really rough thing if you're a Rays fan. I mean, the way your season started,
phenomenal.
One of the best starts to a season ever. And you cool off. Everyone expected you to cool off. I mean, I don't think that team was ever really built to just keep that up the entire time. But their bright shimmering star, who's been unreal, Shane McClanahan, has been unreal just to start his career. He was 11-2 this season with a 3.29 ERA and 21 starts. It's impressive, and to see that he's got now a left forearm injury, and he's unlikely to play the rest of the season, and they're being told that Tommy John is not something to be unexpected, so it's something very serious, and we've seen plenty of pitchers get Tommy John and bounce back and be even better. I mean, Verlander's a good picture of that, but not everyone is Verlander. So I think I've also seen a lot of pitchers who get Tommy John and just can't quite throw hard, can't quite locate, just isn't the same pitcher. So I'm really praying for him, and I really hope that he is able to bounce back from this injury and be able to be on top of his game. With that being said, I think he's, it's only his third season, so I think he's going to be able to bounce back for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Have they given any details on the injury, or did they just say forearm and Tommy John might be needed?
It's just forearm and just Tommy John flexor surgery or loose body removal. I don't know what that means.
I don't know either.
But they're under consideration, but I don't think they have a pinpoint like what they're going to do. They're probably getting second and third opinions from different doctors trying to see maybe he doesn't need Tommy John, but whenever Tommy John's on the table, it's inevitable that you get it. So I think at this point you kind of just have to pack it up and just take him down and just say, okay, it's time to get Tommy John. Let's see how you can bounce back next year.
So this is just a personal question for me because I'm not too familiar with the Rays, despite their outstanding season here. But is that pitching staff still sustainable for their for the team that they're running?
That's a great question.
I don't necessarily think that it's unsustainable. I think without Shane McClanahan, I think without your ace regardless,
exactly,
I think you're gonna be struggling. I don't necessarily think that you just scrap this season. I don't think you necessarily scrap this season. I think the pitching that you have, I think Zach Eflin has really stepped it up this season. I think Tyler Glasnow is back to being a very reliable starter because there was a time where he also got injured. I don't know if it was Tommy John. He also got injured, and he was not he wasn't even close to the same pitcher that he was. But having Zach Eflin, a former Philly, had to throw that in there, who's right now 12-6 with a 3.46 ERA.
It's not too bad.
Is really impressive. And same thing with Tyler Glasnow. He hasn't pitched that many games, but he's 5-3 with a 3.15 ERA.
That's
another really good pitcher for them right now. Their rotation's always been solid. I think for the Rays, it's always been their shining thing. But they do have a lot of injuries to that pitching staff. Shane McClanahan and Drew Rasmussen, who was pitching really good this season, who's on the 60-day IL. I don't know if he's going to be coming back. But even looking into their bullpen, they have a really good bullpen, really impressive bullpen, with Pete Fairbanks as their closer, who has 14 saves and a 1.73 ERA this season, which is very good. And same thing, they also have Jake Diekman, who is a career reliever, really good, really reliable, who has a 2.16 ERA. So I think their pitching pool right now and all the pitchers that they have is very good. And I think that they will be able to sustain it, but I don't necessarily see if it's going to keep them above Baltimore, because Baltimore currently is in sole possession of first place in the AL East. They're in the first place for the wild card, and they have a 6-game lead on Toronto. So that's good for them, but I don't know that it's necessarily.
How many games is Baltimore up by?
They're up
as of today.
As of today, they're up by a few. Let me double check really quick. They're a game and a half behind Baltimore, so they're not far, but that's a very far fall from grace that they've had, because they were 10 to 15 games above everyone else at one point in the season. So
what was that winning streak that they had at the beginning of the year? Like 12?
They had they were like 13-0, 14-0 at the beginning of the season.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was 13-0.
And
that was nuts.
The first time that they got swept happened recently. Like, I think
This season?
This season, swept in a series. They got swept, I think, maybe less than a month ago by the Phillies. So, also had to throw that in there.
Okay.
You know, it's just what I do.
It's just what the Philly fans do. Some other exciting baseball news. A few days ago, we saw Tim Anderson get his clocks cleaned by Jose Ramirez.
Sparkled them gears.
I have not seen a bell rung like that in that sport in a very... That reminds me of the Batista fight that X amount of years ago.
So we were going over this before the show. So, like, can you explain like what happened again?
Yeah. So from what it looked like on the broadcast, Jose Ramirez hit a double and was running full steam into second, and Tim Anderson, who's the shortstop for the White Sox, was not necessarily paying attention to where he was standing, and Jose Ramirez slid right through between his legs.
Yeah.
Like straight through his legs
Clean.
onto the base. Jose Ramirez, who's on the floor now, turns over to his back and is looking up at Tim Anderson. Or as he's turning around, he holds up his hand because he's asking for help to get up. You know, it's just what players do. And he accidentally, what it looks like, hits him in the groin area, which is not a comfortable feeling.
No.
And accidentally hits him in the groin area. And Tim Anderson doesn't like that because he thinks it's a little bit intentional. And Jose Ramirez is like, dude, like, aren't you going to help me up? And he's like, no. And then they start getting into it. They start arguing.
Anderson
and then all of a sudden,
squares the hell up.
Anderson puts his fists up as if he's ready to fight. And Jose Ramirez is like, okay, like, let's go. And they start fighting. And then Jose Ramirez just, without looking, just
whack,
full on, just clobbers him across the face.
Right hook of the century for baseball.
And then next thing, Tim Anderson knows he's in the dugout.
For me, as a big hockey fan, that it gives me flashes of Stu Grimson.
Oh,
dude, the Grim Reaper. Oh man, but no, yeah, that was pretty exciting to see. You know, let's bring this into like a more general conversation. You see, hockey has all these fights in sports, or what? Excuse me. Hockey has its fights in games, in their games.
Yeah,
you don't see this much anywhere else.
No.
I mean,
even hockey's trying to get rid of that.
I think it's stupid.
Awful move.
I think that's hockey. As an outsider, as somebody who doesn't watch hockey as nearly as much as you guys do, I think it is awful for the sport that you were getting rid of one of the main attractions of the sport.
Exactly.
I think it's so dumb. Regardless if they have pads or, you know, oh, it looks trashy. I don't care. I want to see grown men fight. It's one place I don't have to pay nearly as much as the UFC to watch grown men fight, and I'm okay with that. The reason I understand I don't see it in football enough is if you've ever tried to punch somebody with football pads or a football helmet on, you're gonna break your hand.
Have you ever seen a player by the name of Myles Garrett?
That's a great point
Another
too.
reason why.
That is another reason why you don't see it, because those helmets are legal weapons.
For those who don't know, he took off his helmet and just who was he?
He was fighting. He was fighting Mason Rudolph. Ripped Rudolph's helmet off, and they got into a little scuffle. And dude, like, slung it and clocked Rudolph over the top of the head.
Yeah.
That could have killed him.
Could have been.
Killed him. Like,
what head? Did he get a concussion or like?
Yeah. He was out for at least a game, I think, afterwards. Like, Mason Rudolph has had his bell rung a couple of times, both in game and in scenarios like that. But you don't see that often. And then you bring up Andre Johnson, where he punched a dude with his helmet on. I was like, you gotta be seeing red.
You have that adrenaline pumping.
And he went for a hook, and the cornerback is wearing his full gear, and it's like, what?
Like, it's Michael Crabtree getting his chains yanked off.
Yeah, and Aqib Talib, and that whole beef there. God, why do I remember that?
Because I so vividly remember just Aqib Talib grabbing his chains and just full on ripping it off of his neck.
The beef that started.
It was crazy.
Yeah,
but
so you don't
see that.
You don't see it in football often because the guys are trying to be more professional, one, and two, the gear is just so bulky and so heavy. You hit somebody the wrong way, you're gonna break your hand. Or if you're dumb enough, you pick a fight with one of the D linemen like Bosa Aaron Donald, who is notorious for choking people, or Myles Garrett, who has swung helmets at people If you want facts, you look up Aaron Donald getting pissed on any sideline or in game.
Oh, dude, you piss off
immediately goes for like the Darth Vader chokehold, like will kill a man.
He reminds you whose house it is.
Yes, he does.
I should be laughing at that.
But
yeah.
So football, it's obvious, but then you get sports like soccer or baseball. They're not wearing gear. Let them square the hell up, like
But you also forget that baseball, they're literally holding bats, and
I'm not saying
Bryce
the batter.
Harper charge a pitcher, take his helmet off, and fling it at him.
I've seen that.
Yes.
And I don't, I'm happy that nobody's ever been clocked in the head by a baseball bat.
That shit hurts.
I mean, it hurts. Yeah, I don't doubt that. But this is also coming from a bunch of guys who are getting a very solid baseball hucked at them at almost 100 miles an hour.
You're gonna be angry. That's just
You're gonna be angry, but you're also like used to seeing things that can hurt you on regular basis.
But I'm just saying, in the scenario that we were given here with Anderson and Ramirez, Anderson got a 6-game suspension, 5 or 6 game suspension.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that.
Bro got slept. Ramirez only got 1 game
Because Tim Anderson was the one who
because he instigated it.
Okay, that makes sense. But
6 games, 6 games.
No,
that's abysmal.
I also don't know if this is a factor because I know it is in the NHL. Repeat offenders. I don't know if this is Tim Anderson's first rodeo.
I don't think it is. I
that
think
has to be the
because
first.
I know in the NHL they
repeat offenders
get
is a big deal. Yes.
Bigger penalties, like entire seasons. We've also seen that in the NFL.
Oh, we've seen it in the NBA too.
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is not Tim Anderson's first.
Yes, that might be true for that scenario, but I also want to bring up the fact that in the spot they were at second. They're not wearing anything. The worst comes to worst. Ramirez is wearing a helmet, but Anderson's got no. He's got maybe a glove that he
flew
dropped
off when he slid.
Exactly. So you've got no hard gear that they're swinging at each other. I don't think the penalty should be that harsh if it's a good, clean fight. Now, if a helmet's chucked at somebody, or if a baseball bat is swung at somebody's head, that's a completely different story. That's using a weapon to try and take somebody out. That's the same as the Myles Garrett scenario. That should be a harsher penalty. But if the guys are having a clean fight where it's just hands and jerseys, I say that's completely fair.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. This is from sportingnews.com. Says here in this little excerpt, Anderson, who had the day off on Sunday, was suspended for the 3rd time in his career.
Yeah.
This is Ramirez's first offense.
Okay.
So, repeat offenders in baseball. So that takes care of that.
That's understandable.
Yeah. But, from a hockey fan, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like you can expand fighting within the sport, within the other sports, so long as it's regulated. I mean, with NHL, you see the guys drop the stick, drop the gloves, give them space, and then sure, let them go for 25, 30 seconds until someone either drops or they get tired, and then send them off, and then whatever the league would like to do as so far as punishing them.
I completely agree with that. I think the other leagues should instate something similar to that, to whereas it doesn't get out of hand, but you can still let the guys get it out.
Yeah.
I think the problem is with baseball it's a little bit difficult because, when it comes to football, and in some regards basketball, I guess, football's a contact sport, and there's a lot of already big hits. There's a lot of already aggression towards other people in the game. So I think football might be better, but when you're talking about baseball is not a contact sport. You're not running into other players. You're not really having much physical contact with other players besides, laying a tag, and that's it. So I don't know that necessarily letting players fight in baseball is a good thing. Protect your players, at least, because it's, I don't think, this might be a hot take, because we're talking about so much, let the players fight.
Interesting.
But I think when you look at baseball, it's not a contact sport. Nobody's really getting physical with each other. Yeah, tensions get high when a player throws at another player or whatever, hits another player or whatever. Tensions can get a little high, but that's why the bench is clear and they're just yelling at each other. And they shouldn't result to punching each other. It doesn't necessarily show class on the game in that regard because it's not a savage game. It's not like a, it's not like a fighting game. It's a, two teams that are playing baseball. That's just
I get what you're saying.
And I want to protect these players because I know that especially when throwing the ball, it's so arm heavy, and you see players get injured already. And I know throwing a punch, if you don't know how to throw a punch,
you'll break something.
You can injure your hand and injure your arm. And I don't think it's necessarily worth the risk to give entertainment value when you can go watch hockey and watch guys fight 2 or 3 times a game. I mean, you see those old NHL clips where the entire team would literally be fighting on ice.
Tony Brooks.
If you've ever seen the movie Goon, that's all they do in the movie is fight. So it's like, if you want to see fighting in sports, hockey's your place. And I think that also gives hockey a certain charm. Because, I mean, Spencer, that's why you really enjoyed hockey, because you get to see these guys scrum where you don't get to see them.
Yeah, 100%.
And
it hooked you as a new fan.
Oh, 100% it did.
Yeah.
Watching guys that I'm starting to get attached to just throw these absolute haymakers, and getting to belittle players because they're losing a fight. Granted, saying that now makes me sound like a bad person. I guarantee I'm not. But just watching it in the heat of the moment, you get energized. You want your guy and your team to win.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like it so much. Is it's so captivating for new fans. And I think I use football as a good example. I think it would do a lot if you just let it happen, even in a controlled environment. For contact sports, let it happen.
Yeah, for contact.
I'm not saying that I want to see Tiger Woods square up against his fucking what are they called, the little
caddy?
Yes, I don't want to see Woods square up against his caddy because
with a golf club.
He missed a hole in one. Yeah, no, that's manslaughter.
Yeah,
I don't want to see like actual like bad stuff happen, like the whole Draymond incident, the whole shitstorm in the NBA for days on end about, was it intentional, did he deserve this?
Stomping?
Yeah, the stomping on somebody's
that looked so bad.
It's bad looks. Sabonis low-key instigated it, I'm not gonna lie, but Draymond knows better, especially as a repeat offender.
Sabonis was the guy on the floor.
Yeah, he was, because he was grabbing Draymond's leg. But you don't jump your whole 200 and X amount of pounds of body weight in the middle of somebody's solar plexus.
Well, you look at Ndamukong Suh did that on Thanksgiving and just full-on stomped.
Could have killed him, man.
Killed him. What is it?
Because he's like.
Wasn't that Aaron Rodgers?
It was Aaron Rodgers.
I was like, isn't that Aaron Rodgers?
He did it on. Wasn't it Lions? Was he on the Lions at that point?
Yeah, he was on the Lions.
It was Lions Packers Thanksgiving. I want to say 20.
I don't remember the year, but
10.
I'm
gonna guess 2010.
Watching that scene that clip so vividly and hearing about it after, and I don't really hear anybody talking about it, and it's one of the most brutal things that I've seen in football. So like I was saying, I don't think fighting, I mean, also if you kind of look at the scenario.
It's 2011. I was off by 1 year.
You were close. And if you look at both players involved, I don't think it's really like a personal thing between them. I don't think that there's anything personal between them. I do want to put out there that I do think Tim Anderson is a little bit frustrated.
Oh, you should have seen his tweets.
Well, okay, that, but also just his playing right now. He's in the worst slump of his career. He is he's currently batting .242. He only has 1 home run. A player who made his career on being a very good hitter.
That's a power hitter. How many hits?
A power hitter. How many hits? 86. And
so you said his batting average is
his
242?
OPS. Here's a stat that really puts that into reflection. His OPS is 575, right? And his OPS plus is 60. And OPS plus is a more well-rounded stat that more reflects the player's batting ability.
Mm-hmm.
And the league average is 100. That's the league average is 100. And he's at 60.
Ouch.
He's never been below 80 before in his career. So he is not playing at his career. He just hit his first home run a week ago. And he's not playing at his normal... in 2019, he batted .335. And he played 123 games. Mm-hmm. So to see him now not playing as he's going to, I think he's just frustrated with his playing, and I think he's maybe he let it out a little bit, and I think I just think Jose Ramirez got caught in the crossfire, and Jose Ramirez was like, yeah, you don't pick a fight with me. Jose Ramirez is one of the most underrated players in the league.
100%, and I think that that incident kind of put his name out there. People are talking about Jose Ramirez, and then they're pulling up his stats all of a sudden.
People have been talking about Jose Ramirez for a while, and I mean, it doesn't help he's on Cleveland, Cleveland just hasn't done anything
Cleveland's
for him.
Cleveland.
Oof. And I think you also take a look at 2020. He should have won MVP, but that's besides me.
Who won MVP in 2020?
I don't know who won MVP in 2020, but he should have won it. Actually, I don't know if I can find out. Jose Abreu won in 2020, a White Sox. But it was a very close race. I do remember that. But anyways, I do think if you take a look at Jose Ramirez, he's 18 home runs, 289 batting average, 858 OPS, 137 OPS plus.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, his career, his season this year is pretty decent, but
right.
For his standards. But I just think he's just such a good player. Nobody really gives him proper credit for it.
No, 100%. He does
and
not
people
get
were
enough
like,
credit.
underrated player, picked a fight, he lost. So I don't know what you want to say. I think he's a little bit frustrated, but that's just me.
And just back to the fighting thing, and this is mainly for you, Spencer, is there is a clip back in I believe it was the 70s. It was the Rangers and the Bruins. And it got a little out of hand at Madison Square Garden. I believe it was Madison Square Garden. And at the end of the game, it was bench clearing brawls between those two teams, but then fans started to get into it.
Huh?
Yes, fans
like onto the ice or like
no,
in the stands?
started
they
fighting.
They started fighting. So the Boston Bruins team climbed into the stands. This is real. Like, they climbed into the stands and started fighting other fans.
Fans?
There was this one player, and he's an analyst now. His name is Mike Milbury. You can see him in the clip pulling off a guy's shoe and beating him with his own shoe. You gotta send one of us.
You
send
have
it
to
him.
send me that. There's no way you can't just.
It's everywhere. You can find it.
You know, Mike Milbury with a lot of mixed feelings about how he was as an Islanders GM, like alone. You know, real like that it shows how loose of a sport hockey was back then, and with the tightening down on physicality, it's sad to see stuff like that go. But yeah,
beating the shit out of fans with their own clothes has got to be something I was not expecting.
It's the most hockey thing ever. Though.
That is, that's what I picture hockey to be.
You see any hockey movie, there's always a clip of some player getting into the stands and picking a fight with a
that's
and you see the hockey dads that are banging on the glass, like yelling at their kids.
The travel team
These
dads.
8-year-old kids that are like, these dads are like, come on, you gotta do just absolutely.
These poor 8-year-olds were just
a crazy
trying.
Sport.
I feel bad for the kids who get stuck in goal at that age. Oh good God!
Their parents must be rich.
Not only rich. belittled all the time.
Oh, belittled all the time, but
yeah.
I keep going back to that.
Your save rate's like 700, and could you imagine the shit?
It's just you wouldn't be playing hockey for much longer.
Anything under 850 at age 7, you're just dead.
It's done. You better move to defenseman.
Get him the fuck out of net and put him on the Zamboni.
That's just awful.
Okay, that was pretty fun. Okay, let's go with a clean slate here. Next up.
Yes, sir.
Anthony Davis extension. Go.
Oh, right.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, so what was it? 3 years, $76 million?
84 million.
Was it 84? I think it was 76
a year,
guaranteed.
Right? 84 million a year?
No, God, no. No, wait, hold on. Let me pull up that contract.
Yeah,
Jamie, pull that up.
I don't know. It's a 5-year.
Is it 5 year?
I thought it was 3.
It was 5 years. Yeah, 5 years, $189 million contract.
Jeez. Can you pull up how old Anthony Davis is right now?
I could have sworn it was 3 years.
Because I think this takes
30
him...
years old.
Okay, so this is going to take him till age 35, which isn't awful, but it's not going to be the greatest thing in the world. Okay, so my initial thoughts are, great, we get to keep AD. I think Anthony Davis is a amazing asset to the Lakers. Now, granted, you're going to hear people go, oh, it's Data Davis, always damaged. You're always going to get those comments, and I'd likely tell those people to shut the hell up, okay? We get it. He's got busted knees. man's been
He's got busted everything.
man's been a workhorse for his teams for damn near a decade now.
Well,
He was the main guy in New Orleans with him and Boogie, and then Boogie left, so it was just him having to run the New Orleans offense, and then he gets traded to LA with an aging LeBron. Okay, and this is not detracting from LeBron, but that offense runs through Anthony Davis. Because he'll put up, when LeBron was gone, he was putting up consistently, there was 35 points, 38 points, 10, he was consistently putting up like 35, 10, and 5, just, he was a workhorse. He was putting in the work.
Yep.
And I understand the injuries scare people like that, but in the era of load management and having people come on and off the bench to rest a little bit, I think it'll be beneficial for him, especially if we can get him in to mentor another big man in that scenario, because LeBron's going to retire soon. He's going to be gone. So realistically, when LeBron either goes to sign somewhere else with Bronny, if that ever does happen with Bronny's health issues lately, or LeBron straight up retires, the offense will be solely through Anthony Davis unless Austin Reeves becomes this superstar shooting guard. Or, D'Angelo Russell turns into this, superstar point guard. It's realistically going to go through him, and he has to be that workhorse in order to keep that Lakers offense going for playoff time.
I also want to correct myself. It's a 3-year that kind of imitates itself as a 4-year because it doesn't start until the after next season.
Oh, okay. So it's an so it's a bigger extension.
It's a bigger extension. So I would like to clarify that was my mistake.
Okay.
I read like a hypothetical thing,
okay.
but it still is
Understandable.
$186 million
for 3 years.
For 3 years.
Okay.
So he's going to be getting. I'm pretty sure he's going to be getting a ton of money at the end of the contract.
That was
backloaded contract.
Very backloaded. And I think what they're assuming is that LeBron is either not on the team or retired by the time that back end of that contract
because it's going to give them, if LeBron retires or leaves, it's going to give them just a little bit of room, because LeBron's contract was kind of hefty when he first signed.
Obviously,
and he signed an extension
in NBA history.
Yeah, so it was hefty for LeBron and Anthony Davis at the same time, which was a huge struggle for us trying to pick up anybody in free agency or over trades. Like Kyrie was not going to happen because of how much he wanted. And so with the idea of LeBron not being on that Lakers team, it will give us a little more room to give Anthony Davis help at that point in his career. So I'm not too worried about it. I think this is a great time for us to make a push for a ring. We have to get through Denver, as this playoff scenario showed us. But anybody in the West, I think we can take, because it was shown that the
Phoenix?
Even Phoenix. I think with how Phoenix is right now, who do they have? They've got KD. They've got
KD,
Book. Do they still have Ayton?
Yeah, they do.
So Ayton. Who's their point guard?
I'm not all in.
Because they just got rid of Chris Paul.
He just went to the Warriors.
Yeah, which I don't understand for them, but I think they're gonna figure it out. Which, as much as I hate to admit it, it's Chris Paul.
They have Bradley Beal.
Okay, so that was their big pickup. Okay, so
I remember that pickup.
So saying that Bradley Beal,
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so did I. Saying that Bradley Beal stays in shape, stays as his current form and is playing well, and you've got KD who can stay healthy, and Book's just going to perform, and it's whether or not DeAndre Ayton stays up to his contract. I think Phoenix is going to be a hard-pressed team to beat in the regular season, let alone in a playoff scenario. I think Denver's going to be an absolute shit show to try and get around, because Jokic looks like a goddamn walrus on the court and still manages to put up 30 points a night, so it's a little frustrating trying to get around that. And when, Jokic doesn't play well, Jamal Murray decides to be the second coming of freaking Ray Allen and chuck up, 33s a night and make half of them. So I will say this is our spot. I think this is, unless we get somebody really good down the line when LeBron's gone, I think now is our best time to make a push, because we see this Laker team can get it going. It's just we need to keep it going and get around those big, obstacles.
Yeah, I think, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, right now is their time, because they still have LeBron, they still have AD. I mean, they're always going to have AD now, but I mean, they still have a pretty solid team to build around that, or that's built around that. The only issue I see, and I know this is a very unfortunate situation and like kind of a hypothetical at this point, is what happens if whatever happens with Bronny, because goes into cardiac arrest. Thank God he's good, he's okay, and he's out of the hospital. But what happens, because they were saying that he might not ever play basketball again, which I don't think is the situation that's going to happen. But like in that case that he is unable to play, LeBron said that he wants to play with Bronny, and that he's going to play with Bronny. So I think when you take a look at if Bronny doesn't play ever again, then what is LeBron's future? Does LeBron retire even before next season? Because he said he might call it quits after they got swept by the Nuggets. So if he doesn't play, I don't think there's really anything. There's no potential for a deep playoff run this season, or really ever with this team. So it really does come down to LeBron's retirement status and Anthony Davis's availability, because he's not just a weak knees. He's a walking liability, and it's just a matter of time before he gets something that puts him back on the injury report.
Go ahead. I'll let you speak first before I put my thoughts on that.
It's more of a question, and as someone who's still a little new to basketball, well, actually a lot new to basketball, here's my thoughts. Max contract extension on someone who's injury prone. Now, like I will say that the AD always damage comments have a little bit of justification here, just a little bit. But why are we banking so much off of this guy trying to stay healthy for this much amount of money? Like I'm not going to take away from Anthony Davis here. He's a fantastic player, but excuse me. But just you've seen him in the injury reports, like what, every other, how long?
Well,
you see him in the injury report so often, and are you really going to pay this? You're going to pay this much to someone who's not on the court for a lot of the time because he has bad knees, or
well,
like what's the justification for giving him a max contract?
you have to look at the breakdown of his seasons, which I understand. Looking at it from your perspective as an outsider, as of right now, it doesn't look great because he's missing. I'm trying to remember how to spell his name.
Large portions of seasons.
It's not super large portions. I will say
missing almost half a season every year.
I will say 2021-22 was bad. That was
2020 to 21 was also bad.
Also bad, but LeBron was also injured that year too. They kind of trade off.
I don't know if that's
okay.
I don't know if that makes it more justifiable.
Hold on. Hear me out.
All right, fine.
It puts a lot of pressure on him playing more, which will obviously have teams target him to get keep him sidelined. That's what you saw.
Fair.
You saw a lot of this year when LeBron went down this year and the offense went through him. You saw those big men go after each other. You know? So granted,
Totally
the last couple of years before this season were rough. I will not be the first person to admit it, and I'm not gonna be the last. It was rough, especially as a Lakers fan watching what he went through. But 2019-20, he played 62 games. That was a shortened season due to COVID.
Correct.
But he still put up, the best numbers he's had since joining LA, as well as they did win that ring. Regardless of how you feel about that ring, Mickey Mouse. Regardless how you feel about it, those teams went in, they played, they won it. The Lakers were the first seed going into the bubble. They were a great team, regardless of what happened in that area in Orlando. So he still performed well at a high level. And even this year, when LeBron was gone, this season he averaged, around 34 minutes, almost 26 points a game with 12 rebounds and almost 3 assists. Okay. So 26, almost 13 and almost 3, so 12.5 and 2.6. That's not bad. Like, granted, if you're putting that much money into a big man, I hope to God you're putting those numbers up.
But and he can totally do that.
He can. You're not going to get a player play a full season anymore. You're never going to see that. The last time I think I saw a big star, like superstar status, play a full season, I was just talking to him about it the other day, was LeBron in Cleveland's 2018. He played a full 82 games.
Okay.
Which you don't see much of anymore.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to lose your marbles at me. The Kawhi situation. Kawhi, in the same amount of time, I think since AD joined the Lakers, and I think Kawhi was in Toronto the year before, so then he signed with the Clippers.
Okay.
Kawhi has missed more games than AD. I don't know whether it's because of injury or load management or something. He, like, statistically has missed, I want to say, 20 more games than Anthony Davis.
Really?
So I understand the criticism of he's always injured. He's got bad knees. And granted, when you're 7 feet tall, there's gonna be
7 foot?
Yeah.
Nice.
He's like I think he's like, he says 6'11", but he's about 7 foot. Is there something you want to add?
Yeah. Okay. So picking apart that a little bit, because I don't know, it just kind of irks me. I think that if you're a player, regardless of if you're healthy or not playing well or whatever, having one season fully healthy and putting up good numbers does not warrant the biggest contract in NBA history. Personally, I don't say he's not worth a large amount of money and worth a long contract. I'm saying you have obvious risk factors on this player. You have a player who is always injured, and I say always injured, not injured for a long period of time, because Kawhi Leonard is out with an ACL injury, which is a big injury, but it's one injury.
But it was even before that he was dealing with shit.
He was dealing with nagging injuries, but right now he's out. He's been out for an ACL injury, which is a big injury and will cause you to miss a lot of time. Regardless, it can take up to 2 years for a basketball player to fully recover from an ACL injury. I've seen volleyball players take longer, and I do have a background in volleyball, so I do know that ACL injuries are hard to overcome, especially when your job is to jump all the time.
Yeah.
So I think Kawhi, it's fair to compare the playing time from them two, but it's also hard to compare the fact that I saw a graphic in the NBA playoffs showing the amount of body that Anthony Davis has injured throughout his career, and it's every single body part he is injured. In some way, shape, or form, he has injured almost every single body part that can be injured in basketball, and that's not a good look. And how many of those are going to start nagging later on down his career, and how many of those are going to get re-aggravated? Kawhi just has an ACL and maybe a few other nagging things that a lot of other basketball players probably suffer from. But also, if you want to take a look at a player who's had injury problems in the past, but also has overcome them very well, Joel Embiid, another big who's able to keep production up, but also has been dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of nagging injuries, a big back injury guy, and a big foot injury guy. So
back injuries are the worst.
And they're bad for really tall basketball players.
Yeah, because there's just so much surface area.
When
you're a big man, it's a lot of stress on your joints, especially when you're that heavy. I'm not saying Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid are super heavy, especially since the fact they're 7 feet tall. It's just when you've got all that weight on your bones or
6'10".
on your 6'10" or 7 foot, or it's a lot of stress. And when you're constantly jumping, or you've got other, 250, 300-pound big men, Jokic, slamming into you constantly, he's heavy, dude. Have you seen him?
I know.
He's built like a Toyota Yaris. Like, dude is dude is around. So, it's yes, I understand. it looks bad, but he plays through a lot of it. And I'm looking up Kawhi's because I wanted to go off of that. So 2017 playoffs, Kawhi had a sprained left ankle because we all know what happened in that playoff series. And for those who don't know, Zaza Pachulia came down with all of his weight. That's a fat motherfucker, if we ever want to talk about one. Came down all his weight on Kawhi's left ankle, and he put him out for the rest of the playoff series. And then 2017-18, Kawhi missed the first 27 games of the season with the quadriceps injury. In the 21 playoffs, partially torn ACL, and in this playoffs, he had a torn right meniscus. So it's been a really recent thing for Kawhi compared to what you were saying about AD constantly battling it. I'm going to pull it up right now. Injury history. Holy shit. It's literally 2-day intervals of the same thing. But I think it's just the same thing, like nagging him.
Yeah.
So, oh my god, that's pretty constant. Yeah, so it's a lot of like foot here, back here, like knee. So it's a lot of the same things. But it's not like super serious to where it sidelines him for a whole year. Like it hasn't. Like he's still come back and tried to do what he needs to do. And granted, that could cause like worse injuries by playing through current ones. But I think 80 is worth it to a degree, especially when you understand that you know LeBron's clock is ticking. You have a bunch of young guys on small contracts that are now just getting their contracts, like Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves, who are coming into the limelight. I think AD could be a great mentor for Rui. Rui is such a good player, and I think that's really going to come to light in this next season. And Reeves is only going to get better. You give him more, you give him starting minutes, you give him time to shoot, you give him spots to play at. I think he's going to really come into it, and I think it's going to take pressure off of those older and, bigger players. I think it'll work out for the Lakers. I really do. Don't get me wrong. I've seen my fair share of injury-prone players. Like, I saw Lonzo Ball, and we've seen how that's turned out. I've seen, when Kobe would go through his, ups and downs. But I have faith in AD, and I think it's going to work out for the Lakers, at least within this season.
Okay.
Well, really quick, I just pulled up that graphic from the NBA playoff on TNT, and I look at it, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different body injuries that Anthony Davis has sustained in his career. Granted, they're not all like major injuries that have taken him out, for seasons or even for more than 20 games.
Look at, but still, those.
But still,
add up.
I mean, those add up. His entire left leg had injuries all up and down. His tailbone, his back, his shoulders, his fingers, his hands. It's not a good look, and it's not really good, especially as someone, especially when you deal with a lot of injuries. That's a lot of stress that's added on top of your body, and like we said, being a big, it's a lot of extra stress that you have to deal with. Also being a tall human with the normal stress from that, and especially playing a sport where we see so many players that have to take nights off because of load management. I mean, that wasn't really a thing back in like the 90s and before. They weren't playing load management games. So, I mean, you look at the game now, and it's just like in a game that's filled with a lot of load management, to have this many injuries, it's not a recipe for success down the line. And if you're going to pay your guy $60-70 million a season at the end of this contract, in year 4 or 5 of this contract, then I mean that might all come back to bite him. And it's not as, it looks better for a guy like Kawhi to come back from his injury rather than Anthony Davis to come back from all of these injuries and still be able to put together a somewhat full season. Because obviously, you're not going to play 82 games anymore. You might not even play like 75 games anymore.
No.
So
We'll be lucky to get 70.
yeah, you'll be lucky to get 75.
Regardless of load management or injury. Like, you don't see 70 out of those kind of guys anymore. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I get the concerns, especially as, newer fans watching the Lakers and going,
holy shit, that's a lot of money, especially coming from a hockey guy where, you know, you're looking at 7 years, $6 million a year or some shit like that. Like,
I got payday, yay!
compared to 3 or 4 years, you know, 186 million. By the
More
way,
money than God.
that was the entire cap of 2013.
Yeah, it was.
So
He's getting paid more
10 years
for
ago,
one
that was the
season.
entire cap hit of teams.
That's crazy.
So it just shows how much money this sport rakes in and can pay their players. So we'll truly see it coming up this season. I have high hopes as, you know, a purple and gold's supporter.
Yeah.
I can only hope for the best. I wish AD the best. You know, good job he got paid. I think he deserves it, especially he was a routine part in our playoff pushes and our ring. So I think if the Lakers get one in the next couple of years with him either in that contract or in another restructured down the line, I think it'll be worth it.
Two things just to kind of close. Talking all of this smack kind of against AD, I do think he's a good player, and I do think when he's healthy, he produces a lot. But the only issue is like I don't know if I can justify paying him the largest extension in NBA history for a very big question mark on his status.
Yeah.
And where what his injuries lead, and I don't want to put him in much more jeopardy of his health if that's what it's going to be. And also, I just want to say, you know, for someone who's a fan of a team that's not necessarily won the most rings, being able to just say like, oh, you know, if we just get a ring, you know, just get another ring, you know, then it'll be all over. That's just the most spoiled thing I've ever heard in basketball.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
we
just got to get another ring. No big deal.
Well,
That's not a big deal.
You have to think about where I'm coming from.
You have like 25 rings.
We have 17.
17 rings. I'm thinking of the Canadians.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I have 17 rings. Like,
well, because you have to think about where
the San
I'm.
Francisco 49ers have 6.
5.
But see what I'm saying is
No,
like,
because if I had,
you're spoiled.
If we
in that-
had,
yeah,
if we had 6, I would have so many more bragging rights
It's
over
not
the
even-
LA fan in the room. Not
It's not
you.
even
I'm the
about
other
bragging
one.
rights. But anyways,
But
like you just see like, oh, if 17 rings, like that's no big deal. You've also been to the most NBA finals in out of any team in the league.
Exactly, and
so
you
it's
have
like
to.
now it's just like, oh, just another trip back to the finals, no big deal. Where, like, I guess I'm not necessarily in a position to complain either, because I make the playoffs every year, and some teams don't make the playoffs every year or make the playoffs regularly. So it's just like, I don't know. That's just me just like saying that.
No,
I find it funny that you're just like,
you're 100% right. You're 100% right in that. But you have to think about where, like, what I've seen.
like, bro, missed the playoffs one time.
Because we did.
No, just make the playoffs. Miss the playoffs one time.
We did, and we got clowned on
Yeah,
that
you
season.
guys, you went like 2-80.
Oh my god, it was so bad. But no, it was abysmal. We went like 20, like right after Kobe retired, we went like 25-50 something. Like,
Yeah,
it was
I remember.
abysmal. But to add on to that, you have to think about where I came from as growing up as a Lakers fan. I've seen 3 championships in the years I've been. I saw 2 with Kobe. I saw the one with LeBron. You know, Kobe was winning them as I was coming out of the womb. You know, all I've known as a Lakers fan is either absolute despair or complete euphoria. There is no in between as a Lakers fan. It is either all pain or all joy.
Either we're so back or it's so over.
Exactly. And I get it
Okay.
as somebody who is a Philly supporter. You don't see that very often. It is just the constant pain of getting bounced. I get it. You'll get there eventually.
I mean, but like, I just want to say one thing. Like, you see, excuse me. You see, like in the 2010s, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw the same 7 teams in the finals.
It was 2010s. Let's see if I can remember everything correctly. So it was Lakers, Celtics, Spurs, Heat. The one year that Dirk made it with the Mavericks.
Goated.
And then Dirk is
11. Okay.
So it was right after Kobe. He beat Kobe to go to that finals. So
Yeah.
he'd swept Kobe that year, beat the next guys, and then beat the super team Heat in 6. So
Mm-hmm.
that's considered like one of my favorite seasons of all time, regardless of, you know, he beat the Lakers. It was great. But it was the Mavericks, Heat, Lakers, Celtics, And then
Warriors.
Cavs Warriors.
Cavs Warriors.
And then at the
That's-
very end of it, you got the Raptors thrown in there. So
That's 8 teams,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's
that's
because
eight.
these teams just create dynasties and just reign for years.
Well, yeah, okay, but like
and the Spurs.
you already counted the Spurs.
Did I count the Spurs?
You already counted the
sorry,
Spurs.
it slipped my mind.
So, but like, we are entering, at least as an outsider, like there's something I noticed. We are entering a decade where we're seeing different competitors.
yeah,
I mean, sure, the Warriors are still there. They were still there. What, last year?
they were in playoffs this year.
Yeah, or I'm
Yeah,
thinking of the year before. They're like you see the Bucks are here, the Suns are here, help me out. Who else?
Bucks, Suns, Nuggets. The Heat were
Nuggets.
coming back. A completely different version of the Heat.
Completely different version of the Heat. The competition is everyone. Like
It's a new era.
You see everyone open up the competition now.
The small
like,
markets.
The
are making
small
their
market teams
splash.
are making it. So like although your point, Nick, like that does make total sense. And I see why spoiled fan bases and huge media.
Cowboys.
But I think that will die down now, and I really think I really think competition will open up, and we'll see more of that spoiled type garbage come out of the picture a little bit. But that's just what I notice personally.
I'm just the one last thing I'm gonna add about the spoiled thing is, as somebody who's been watching football as long as I have, you will never get away from spoiled franchises. And my
Football or basketball?
football.
Okay, football.
I'm using my football experience here. As Nick can attest to this, there has been a certain franchise that has not even seen the Super Bowl in 30 years and still will not shut up about it. They're a heated historical rival of ours. They're a heated division rival of his. They don't stop talking. It doesn't matter. They will always talk and talk and talk like they're good when they're not. So,
I don't
regardless...
even think that they're good when they're not. I just think that they just run their mouth. But I'm not gonna really dog on them too much because it's at the end of the day.
Sorry, who were we talking about?
The Cowboys.
Talking about the
We were
Cowboys.
trying to we were trying to beat around the bush.
I'm
And he
just
got what I was saying.
No, I totally got what you're saying, but I just I don't know. As a person who deals with a lot of Cowboys fans,
You and me both, brother.
I just don't know how you could justify talking when your team hasn't even seen the light of a Super Bowl, even the light of an NFC championship game.
They haven't gotten out of the divisional in
Yeah, I was just
in
about to ask
30
that.
years.
They're
like
like
20, 30
Toronto.
years.
It's just
and
Toronto Maple Leafs, yeah.
every time
Yeah.
they get close to the divisional, they run into San Francisco and lose. That's just clockwork. That's how they do it.
yeah, and then San Francisco runs into us.
Hey,
and then
shut up! No, we're not getting into that. I'm not having a meltdown.
Or
here.
the Vikings run into us and don't even really.
I'm
score
not having a
touchdown.
meltdown here.
But okay, but besides the point, I think when I don't know, just fan bases. Some fan bases are way more spoiled than others, and some fan bases don't like to change. Don't
No.
like change.
No.
Have the same GM, same owner for 40 years. I mean,
You gotta get rid of Jerry Jones.
You
dude.
have to.
He's
And
not doing anything.
I've seen takes where people are they'll never win a Super Bowl so long as Jerry Jones. is
They
there.
won't. They won't because he won't pay players like Amari Cooper to stay around, and he'll just get dollar store versions of them, and their play will suffer.
Ezekiel
Because
Elliott.
now you've got Dak Prescott throwing. You gotta hear me. At practice, they practice out in Inglewood. There's something.
Oxnard?
Not close. They're close.
Ventura?
No, that's too far north. You think south.
Camarillo?
I just said
They're in
Inglewood.
Ventura.
Okay,
Are
they're
they-
here.
They're in
Regardless,
Ventura.
they're in California.
Yeah,
Dak Prescott at practice out here
right.
threw into double coverage to
Okay.
a 5'5" running back.
They play in Oxnard.
5'5" rookie running back. So
It's embarrassing.
the
God.
average height for an NFL cornerback.
6 something, right? Gotta be
I want to say around
6.
6 foot. I want to say maybe 5'10", 5'11", but I'm gonna ballpark it at 6 foot. you're throwing to a guy who's at minimum 7 inches shorter, unless you catch a safety who is 6'3". So you've got a 6-foot corner and a 6'3" safety against a 5'5" rookie running back.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Dude.
It's a bad
Jerry
read.
Jones, why are you signing these players? Why are you extending people who aren't good?
I'm not going to say that being short in football is necessarily a bad thing.
Well, we saw Darren Sproles do it for years.
Exactly. You just need to know your position as a short guy in the NFL.
Stop running wheel routes as a running back.
As a short running back. I mean, I've seen guys like Christian McCaffrey run amazing routes, but he's also taller and more athletic.
He's borderline a wide receiver.
He's basically a wide receiver. But, I mean, looking in training camp, I don't know how you can, like, I don't know. I just, like, you take a look at the Cowboys practicing in California.
Which I don't understand.
I don't understand either, because I guess the Texas weather is a little crazy right now, but, like, it's also bad here, too, when they practice. So I don't get it.
But, I mean, Oxnard's close enough to the beach, you get it a little colder.
It cools off
Got
a little
that
bit.
coastal breeze coming.
Yeah. But I just think you got to make a change, and it has to come from somewhere. And letting go of a really good running back in Ezekiel Elliott is not necessarily.
Or letting him, like, fizzle out. Like, damn.
They just let. I mean, he had a little bit of a fumble issue, and then that was their excuse to say, all right, we're going to take your snaps away and give it to Tony Pollard.
And then Tony Pollard gets his legs rearranged in the divisional game, and they keep him around, and they don't let Zeke stay. I'm like,
Zeke's still a free agent, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he is. Unless he signs some,
him and
like...
Dalvin Cook are...
But I 100% think Dalvin Cook should get a contract before Zeke does.
Dalvin Cook should go to the Jets.
I 100% agree. Him and Breece Hall? I think him and Breece Hall would be a great thing.
And Michael Carter. I'm pretty sure Michael Carter.
Michael Carter still in that backfield?
Yeah.
Regardless.
But Michael Carter, I was high on Michael. I drafted him in fantasy one year, and I thought he was pretty good, but then he was...
Injuries, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it was necessarily injuries. I just think he just never got really the snap share that he deserved.
No, he didn't.
And that made him suffer fantasy-wise, and I guess his stock-wise.
Stock-wise. Since we're on the topic of the NFL, what do we have?
We were looking for the top 100 players list.
Oh, golly.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad.
I don't think...
It's a bad list?
It's a bad...
Overall.
Well, it's a bad list, and it's just like, it's never been good.
It's always inconsistencies. And the NFL Top 100, if I'm remembering correctly, was voted by players. So
I think it's players. Isn't it
What?
like players, coaches, and GMs?
It might be, but I know the players are the ones interviewed. So it's a lot of opinions in the sport that are generally wrong. Like, Lamar was voted 72. Now, Lamar had an injured season, don't get me wrong. Kind of affects his season. But Lamar Jackson is not the 72nd best player in the NFL. The fact that Zach Martin, as much as I hate to admit that the Cowboys have some good players, was barely on that list. Or
Zach Martin?
Yeah. Wasn't he in like the 50s and he was like the best rated guard of the season? Or that Trent Williams was outside the top 10?
Zach Martin was 68.
Okay, 68. And
Can I have that list?
I can. Yeah.
He has more seasons than holding calls.
Wait, what?
He has played more seasons in the NFL than he does holding calls.
That's
Like,
a very
Zach Martin?
interesting
Yeah, if I remember that correctly. He's absolute beast. Like, dude knows what he's doing. And he was 68 on the list.
Okay, I'm going to put my eyes on this
Yes,
list.
take a look at it.
For the first time, I, as an outsider, will I catch mistakes on here?
Maybe. I think you'd see some.
Okay, so what do we got here? We got...
Mahomes is 1, which is honestly
Mahomes is
expected.
1. Jefferson 2.
I think he was the best wide receiver this season, so I kind of agree with the fact he's 2.
Jalen Hurts 3. Nick
Should've
Bosa
been 2.
4.
I think, if we're going to go that far, I think Bosa should be 3 if you want to say Hurts is 2, because I think Bosa was the best non-quarterback player in the league. Defensive. No, I'm saying defensive player of the year. He had 18, 19 sacks.
Oh,
I think.
excuse me.
I think. I think he 100% deserved where he's at. But if we want to move people around, like an MVP runner-up a spot, I 100% agree that, the defensive player of the year should get moved up a spot too.
Allen at 8. Chris Jones at 10.
I don't understand that one. I don't know how well Chris Jones did this season. I don't
I
understand
think
why
Chris
he's
Jones
top
had a
10.
good season, but I don't know why he's above. I don't. What number was he?
Why
at?
is he
10?
above?
Chris Jones is 10.
I don't know why.
For reference, Aaron Donald's 11.
I
But Aaron
also
Donald
don't
didn't
know
have the
why
greatest season.
he's 38 positions better than Hassan Reddick, who should have won DPOI. I just don't know why you just keep throwing these guys. I mean, you throw certain guys under the bus.
Chris Jones should not be top 10. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'll give Hassan
I
Reddick the time
also
of day
do
to say
kind
he's
of,
top
like,
10.
Get mad at their blatant disrespect of some of these more obscure positions because
They
like,
don't give any love to linemen as much as they nearly should.
no love to O linemen. I think the best rated, I think the highest
It's Trent Williams, I
offensive
think.
lineman was
I'm 90% sure it was Trent Williams at like 14.
Trent Williams. Yes, is the highest, but the next one is Jason Kelsey at 36, 37.
Which is stupid.
And I do think that Jason Kelsey is the best offensive lineman in the game, especially at his old age. And I think, why is he at 37?
I'd say he's definitely in my eyes. I'd say he's a top 3 lineman on like the line regardless.
He's
and I'd
the
say
best center. For
I say
sure.
he's number 1 at his position. So the fact he's 22 positions behind the person I consider the best O-lineman, and the best O-lineman doesn't even crack the top 10, whereas a D-lineman who wasn't even in contention for Defensive Player of the Year,
Same thing with Aaron Donald.
or like Hassan Reddick or Bosa.
Was Aaron Donald even in contention for?
No.
He's ranked 11.
Why is he ranked 11? When or even Micah Parsons? Where's Parsons?
He's 9.
Parsons is 9.
Okay,
I like Parsons up there, although.
but he was like what, 2nd or 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah.
So like it's they don't give love to certain positions nearly as much as they do others. Quarterbacks reign the top 10. That's just
Of course
always
they will.
That's just always how it is. It's
I saw a
MVP.
post saying it was like the last 10 number 1 players.
They've been
It was all quarterbacks
except for Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald was the only defensive player, and there was 2 running backs and a receiver on that list. And it's all quarterbacks. But I understand quarterbacks.
Half of it
is the
was
most
Brady though.
Half of
Let's
it's
be real.
Brady, yeah. I think it was 4 was Brady for the 10 years. But I just think that
Insane.
it's just hard to really rate anyone above a quarterback because of just how essential a quarterback is to your team and to your team's success. So I think it's really hard to say.
You don't see it in any other sport. The absolute essential of any position like that.
Yeah.
Like quarterback commands the offense. If they screw up, it's on them. If they do well, it's all them. I don't know.
I very rarely see receivers getting put in the doghouse.
No, for dropping passes or causing interceptions, you never see that.
But you also rarely see receivers get praise for never dropping passes. I'm pretty sure
Every time they
there was
bring
a
up
stat
DeAndre
that
Hopkins.
Larry Fitzgerald never dropped a pass for 3 straight seasons.
Nobody talks about
And
it.
nobody talked about that. He's going to go in the NFL Hall of Fame
100%.
because of that career. But I can't remember the last time somebody said Larry Fitzgerald's name in a conversation.
It's because he retired.
It's because he retired, but I'm just saying,
not a thought
I
in
can't
people's
remember.
head.
But I've heard receivers that have retired that are not as good. So
Yeah, it's just it's really frustrating looking at these lists as a fan and as somebody who's played football, understanding the importance of the O-line and these positions that don't get the flashy respect that quarterbacks do. It's really disheartening. These guys get paid tens of millions of dollars to protect the quarterbacks and don't get recognized for it, and it's really frustrating.
yeah.
Okay, so obviously we have pointed out that player-made lists are the most unreliable thing ever.
They do a few lists from the players and GMs throughout the seasons. They have one before the season. They have one, obviously, this big list that everyone waits for. They also have a mid-season list too.
Yeah, but none of them are really
and none of them are really that good.
It's because they're all friends.
They are all friends.
I think
and
it's because they
basically-
all
That's
like
also
each
true.
other.
It also is a big popularity contest, honestly, because it's some of these players that I wouldn't say are necessarily had good seasons are on here that just way higher than they should be, and either it's because they had they're all friends, or they're just a legacy player that's have been really good.
I genuinely don't think Aaron Donald should have been top 15. I'm sorry, I get it. I might be pissing off a few Rams fans. He's getting old, and he did not have a good season on a bad
Did
Rams
Khalil
team.
Mack have a good season?
No, I don't.
He's ranked 38.
Okay, that's I jumped the gun a little bit there. I don't think he had a bad season, but I don't think he had a noteworthy season unless I pull up the stats, which I'm going to right now to correct myself. But
there's some guys on here like, and I've seen like in comment sections of these posts, both ways, especially about a guy like Cooper Kupp. Some people say Cooper Kupp shouldn't even really been on this list.
No, he was injured
because of his injury. But some people were like, Cooper Kupp, when he plays, is one of the best receivers in the league. So it kind of really is hard with these receivers and with these guys that get injured. It's really hard because it's like when they do play, they're playing at a high level and they're really good. But when they're not playing, obviously it's the lack of playing time that ticks them down a little bit from their previous years. But the players also recognize that they are actually still good and they played well.
So I looked it up. Khalil Mack had 50 combined tackles, 17 assists, and 8 sacks.
So that's pretty solid.
It's solid, but do we want to consider it top
season.
40?
Yeah, I mean, better than what I, normally would expect.
Okay, so then let's look at Aaron Donald's stats this year, because I don't want to just sound like a complete hater, even though I kind of am.
I also think there's some players on here that, like, especially when you get towards, like, the late half, so like 70 through 100, it's really hard to rank these players.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really hard to rank.
So I'm looking at it right now. His 2022 season, Aaron Donald had 49 combined tackles, 22 assists or assisted tackles or assisting it. I don't fuck it. And 5 sacks.
It's definitely not as good.
No, that's
How
not.
many games?
It's not showing. Let me look at PFR right now. But compare that to 2018 where he had 20 and a half sacks, or last season he had 12 and a half, or the season before that was 13 and a half.
I mean, that now you're just comparing to what the players can do, not what's being done currently.
I think it was 11 games.
11 games?
It might be 11, but
it's
I might be...
a solid amount of games still.
To only have 5 sacks, though, as somebody who is a former 3-time Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah. And
the season before, you had 12 and a half sacks and doubled your tackles.
Yeah.
So your production got cut in half. Understandable, double teams, triple teams exist. I understand that as an offensive lineman.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people were touting how good he is at beating double and triple teams.
Exactly.
Like, he's the best double team beater in NFL history, but gets double teamed at a historic rate and is all of a sudden down. So what do you do? I don't know.
I just don't know, man. So it's really frustrating to see players like Defensive Player of the Years or candidates for Defensive Player of the Years get ranked so low compared to these guys who were legacy fill-ins.
Yeah.
It's just really frustrating. And since we're on the topic of lists now, let's talk about somebody who is on a talk show, not necessarily a talk show, a sports show, and doesn't know how to make lists. I'm going to call him on it because it's complete BS.
I don't even think he makes those lists.
Well, whoever does should be fired. If it's him, he should be fired. Colin Cowherd, I think it was today, put out one of the worst lists I've ever seen in my life. He put out quarterbacks who will never win a Super Bowl. I think it might have been never see a Super Bowl, but I think it was never win a Super Bowl. And the one that irked me, particularly, the two that did, were Dwayne Haskins and Trey Lance. Now, the Trey Lance one, you might hear me be a bit biased here because I am a 49ers fan, but to pick a guy just because he broke up with your daughter is really tacky, dude. Like, let's be real. We all know he was singing Lance's praises before they split, and then all of a sudden you change your tune, and you're just slamming the dude. Oh, he's not good. Oh, he deserved to get injured. Yada, yada. I'm not going to say he said that particularly, but the way Cowherd's tone was is that he did not like Lance going forward. And then the next one was Dwayne Haskins, who, for those who don't know, passed away, I want to say about 1.5 years ago. So, yeah, no shit, he's not going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like,
and there's a few players in there like Josh Rosen, Paxton Lynch,
like,
who haven't even been on the field.
Josh Rosen's seen 5 teams in like 6 years. He's not. I don't think he's even in the league anymore, or he's a backup somewhere.
Yeah. So I don't know why. It's a really in poor taste list, a very under researched list, and a very like inappropriate thing to say on live television, like
Without even proofreading.
and like you as a commentator should know, because I watched the clip and I picked on it immediately as soon as he said Dwayne Haskins' name. I was like, that's just not right. So you got to have an awareness as a professional sports commentator who's had more airtime than anyone else. You got to really take a look at it and say, wait, that's not right. You can't put a deceased player on that list. It's so in poor taste.
Yeah, and I'm also just going to mention this tweet by the famous sports YouTuber Urinating Tree. He had put his 2 cents on it.
Love urinating tree.
Yeah.
I don't remember his real name.
He brings this up. He says, everyone's talking about Dwayne Haskins with this overlay, but can we talk about how lazy and unresearched, like how you said, how lazy and unresearched the rest of this list is? Blake Bortles, retired.
Retired,
Yeah.
yes.
Paxton Lynch,
He's
EJ Manuel,
out of the league.
Johnny Manziel, out of the league. Marcus Mariota is backing up Jalen Hurts.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
He's our backup.
Interesting.
Josh Rosen and Carson Wentz, free agents, and then Kenny Pickett was a rookie last year.
A rookie.
A rookie.
Like, come on.
And if you like look at the
Who still
actual-
didn't he still have
decent season.
a winning record?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he kept that streak
He
alive.
kept the Packers, the Steelers streak alive.
But like if you actually like take a look at the clip, I don't know if you noticed, it says
It's bad. It's bad.
Well, here's the funny part is that it's literally misspelled as Collins QBs that can win Super Bowls.
He corrected it.
He corrected it on air, and they took off the graphic. But if you're trying to target a bunch of these names here, and you're like trying to slander them, you can't even spell the header of your graphic.
Minor spelling mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Minor spelling mistake to Mr. Coward here, but it is just, and I'm going to be a little harsh here. It is with utmost degeneracy to put someone who is deceased, like how you brought up Dwayne Haskins there, and then like just have the rest of this just completely, just a lazy and unresearched list with all these players that are in totally different situations that of course are not going to win Super Bowls. So,
I don't even think I've been this upset at Skip Bayless for saying something. Skip has pissed me off a couple
Skip
times.
is awful.
But Skip hasn't said this is abysmal.
This is the worst.
What he said, mentioning Dwayne Haskins is bad, and that whole graphic is bad, and it's horrible broadcasting, and it's horrible sports journalism. I also think that Skip Bayless said some really, really messed up things, and that kind of brings me to my little like side topic, especially when talking about Colin Cowherd. Why? I mean, like you see in the NBA is a really good example of this.
100%.
Whenever they're looking to hire people like on NBA on TNT, ESPN to fill those things, they get people who have played the game and that understand the game in a more like respect for the game.
Jalen Rose, JJ Redick.
Exactly.
Who else am I missing?
I mean,
Shaq Barkley.
Like,
Ernie's been in the game since the 80s for broadcasting.
So I think you get guys who actually respect the game, who love the game, but then you have these guys like Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless who just will make any comments they want and pretty much get a free pass every single time to say these things and make really bad takes. And it's almost like that's their appeal. It's like, that they're about to say something stupid and heinous, so let's tune in and watch. I don't think I've ever taken a thing that either of them have said with anything more than a grain of salt.
Like,
especially what Skip was saying about Shannon Sharp.
Oh.
That stuff was mean.
So,
and that stuff was brutal and no respect for the game.
So for reference, Shannon Sharp was co-host of Undisputed with Skip Bayless.
Okay.
Shannon Sharp is a Hall of Fame NFL tight end.
Okay.
He's won at least a Super Bowl. I think it was 2. He won one with the Broncos, and I'm fairly certain he won one with the Ravens with that 2000 squad. So, bare minimum, 2-time Super Bowl champion, NFL legend and Hall of Famer.
Right.
And you tell the man he's not good because Tom Brady has more Super Bowls than him?
Yeah.
They play in
What?
2 different eras, 2 different positions.
Incomparable.
That is comparing an Apple to an M1 Abrams. Like, that's not even fair.
It's not.
I have never seen something that's comparing Anthony Davis to a 4-star general. That doesn't make any sense. It's such a wide gap because they don't even have the same skill set. And Shannon is in some of the best shape, greatest shape I've seen out of a man in his 50s. Like he looks good. He's keeping his football form. How are you going to talk to a man who has kept himself in good spirits, in good shape, after a 10+ year NFL career where you win 2 Super Bowls? How many players get to say they've won 2 championships with 2 separate teams and
He's won 3 Super Bowls.
3. So it was 2 with the Broncos.
So
That's even worse.
It makes it even worse of a look. And with commentators like this, like you'll find them like in nooks and crannies of the sports media world, but like they'll show their face when they make bad takes like this because any press is good press to these guys. And for us 3 and for Michael and then for Brendan and who aren't here with us today, we're just guys talking in a room and
and we know our place.
We know better.
But the fact we know more about the sports than the people getting paid millions of dollars a year to do it.
Millions.
Tens of millions.
That's why I can't wait for Jamal Williams to retire from football and become a commentator because that guy's fun. Great personalities. It's just they hired them for their personalities and they learned sports along with it.
I think the Kelsey brothers have been a perfect example of that. Their podcast. Go listen to their podcast. It's called New Heights. It's Jason and Travis Kelsey.
Yep.
Shameless plug. I don't care. I love those guys. As much as I may hate the Chiefs and may despise the Eagles, mainly their fan base. Mainly the fan base. Regardless, I love those 2 guys. They're hilarious and they know so much about their respective positions and about themselves and can educate so well. It's just, but then I'm gonna go even farther and say YouTubers. I got my football content from MMG. He was playing Madden Mobile, and that's how I got my football content. Jimmy High Roller. Urinating Tree covers most sports, and that's how Tom or Grossi, however the Packers fan. I forget how his name is. That's good sports. These guys are so educated in their fields and do such a good job making it fun to learn about football and making it fun to learn about respective sports without saying heinous shit. And it's so it boggles my mind that, granted, they get more time to put it into more time in production, but the landscape of sports media is changing. We're getting more Pat McAfee's, we're getting more Kelsey brothers. Guys.
And I like that, and I think, but the problem is like kind of like what we talked about this a lot before, and it's been really on the rise in the NFL's. Is this new age of just like everyone's obsessed with making a list. They're making a list of this. They're making a list of that. Who's the best this? They're trying to put numbers to quantify who's better than other people.
Right. And it's just hard to.
It's hard because it's like you're also... And the problem I have with the NFL Top 100 is that you're comparing players of different positions, different sides of the football with each other and just saying, okay, well, this is the end-all, be-all top 100 players of the season ranked by the players who should be the most unbiased group of people that we can poll.
Yeah.
So I think I just don't like this new trend of the lists. It divides the football community, and I guess that could be a good thing, causing more rivalries and more tension. But it's just like it then now calls for like some of these players who are really good to get kind of just degraded almost in like their abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am someone who kind of gets to see it. Jalen Hurts is my guy. I've seen so many people during the season rating Jalen Hurts so high. But as soon
Right.
as the offseason starts and they like, oh, he lost the Super Bowl. He
lost the
had
biggest
one-
game of his career as the first full season as a starter.
Exactly.
Like,
and
come
I
on.
said,
Give the guy a
I
break.
literally give the guy a break, but also my whole issue is you're talking about this guy who's on one good season. I don't know if you guys saw, but his record as a starter is phenomenal.
Well, even in college, like he was
in college,
great.
but I'm saying as a starter in the NFL for the Eagles, his record is phenomenal.
Isn't
you
it
look at those,
like
you
what
look at
20
those-
and
he's like
7 or something
He's like 30 and 11 or something
Okay.
like that.
Because did he play a full season the season before?
Yeah, so he played the full season.
Oh,
led
I
us
didn't know
to the playoffs. And that first season that he played, the 2020 season, he was playing on probably one of the worst Eagles teams I've ever seen. There was no There's no receivers. It was Dallas Goedert's like second year in the league. Miles Sanders was already starting to be called a bust, and there was an old Alshon Jeffrey
Oh, good God.
and a Butterfinger Nelson Aguilar, and I'm pretty sure we still have Zach Ertz on that team.
That was
who
right
is
before
the
he went to
veteran.
Arizona.
Exactly. So, being able to still come into the league and throw 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions his first season is really impressive. And then to see him
That was
take
a full season?
It wasn't the full season. It was
Oh.
like half a season.
Okay, I was like, damn, a full
Wasn't
season,
even- I don't
1,000
think it was
yards?
half a season.
I thought it was the last, like, 6 games.
Yeah, it was the last 6 games.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
He has a 26-18 record as a starter.
See, that's not bad at all.
Which is really impressive, especially knowing that those teams that you were leading, and then you take into consideration last season, he only got better. He got significantly better. 60% completion, over 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Step up. Still a not great team. Devonta Smith's rookie season. Dallas Goedert was establishing himself more. Not really much from Miles Sanders. Kenneth Gainwell's rookie season. Like, there was not much
Working
going
on it.
on. This season, they get A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert really breaks into his shoes. Devonta Smith,
really
phenomenal footwork.
coming in as
phenomenal
that
route run.
speedster.
Exactly. And then now you have Quez Watkins, who figure out how to actually run a route instead of just run. And you also
You'd
have
be surprised.
you also have Miles Sanders, who's figuring out how to stay healthy, and they're figuring out how to use the run game. Comes out, has almost 67% completion percent, 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Passing, doesn't even count the
Was it the
running,
13?
rushing yards. He had like 1,300 yards and like 14 touchdowns, 13 to 14 touchdowns.
So the only thing I ask from Hurts is more passing TDs. As a quarterback, that's what that's personally that's me. That's me. If I'm a
But
quarterback
that's what
coach-
everyone's saying, and I'm like, okay, but you also look at the total touchdowns, and he's
total
putting
totals.
up phenomenal numbers. And quarterbacks, I mean, we're seeing it ever since, honestly, Michael Vick really broke out and people really figured out that a mobile quarterback might actually be the way. Jalen Hurts is revolutionizing it. And honestly, say what you want about Lamar, he has a much better skill set than Lamar Jackson does. And
I think
he's also can squat 700 pounds.
I think I will agree with the fact that Jalen Hurts has a better skill set. I think he's got a stronger arm and can launch the ball when need to.
He can launch that
So,
ball.
but that's what I want to see more from him. I like the fact he uses his legs. Trust me, I love a dual threat quarterback as much as the next guy.
But this is also the problem that we were talking about when we were talking about system quarterbacks, is that they have created a system for him in which he has the best rushing offensive line potentially
why
in
not use it?
NFL history.
Why not use it?
Why not use it?
So I'm not knocking him for having
And why not? And
30 plus total touchdowns. That's not a
and they
bad
run
thing.
a lot of RPOs. They run a lot of design quarterback sneaks.
Yeah,
they
they
do
sneak
a
at
lot
the goal
of,
line.
They
like
do
it's
a lot of that, which is designed to take advantage of his skill set. And you know what? I'm gonna say about that is, as long as we're winning as many games as we can,
Yeah, who
which
gives
we
a
have
shit?
been.
Who gives a shit?
I don't care.
realistically.
I don't care that he's not throwing as many passing yards as Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes have ever done.
No.
I don't care.
Different
but
skill
I do
sets.
also care that he's rushing more than any other quarterback. He's getting the ball in the end zone just as much as those guys. However you do it and however you win games, you're winning games.
Yeah. So I agree that it's a vital skill set that, you're going to use and abuse. My problem is what scares me the most is I saw RG3, and I know you know RG3 as much as I do. I don't want Hurts to, God forbid, deal with a huge injury and then not know how
Carson
to
Wentz.
play. Not know how to play because he can't run.
And that's the thing that that was the whole concern when he was a rookie and we drafted him, and we were just saying like, okay, well, like what's going on with Hurts? He can only run the ball. His arm isn't that good. What did he do? Worked in the offseason.
He worked on the arm.
He worked on his arm. And say he does get an injury that limits his ability to rush the ball, he's still a very efficient passer. And what do? You just tweak your game plan, and you tweak your script. And you tweak the system, and you say, okay, we're going to let you throw the ball a little bit more. And what does he do? He throws the ball a little bit more. And he's already proven that he's a established passer who can be effective in the passing game. So why not? I mean, so in that instance, he's already proven that he can do it. That's something that Carson Wentz never really got to do.
Yeah.
Same thing with RG3, and same thing with a lot of those mobile quarterbacks that got early injuries. And Jalen Hurts, not injured whatsoever. So
yeah, I
don't think he's ever really had injury problems.
No, I hope that just doesn't turn into the case for him. That's the last thing I would want for him. Because I'm in his corner. Don't get me wrong.
I think a lot of people definitely are in his corner. But it's just like it's hard to just look at the stats.
It sucked watching him get benched at Bama and then trying to run to OU to redeem himself, and he kind of did. Like he did a great job. Drafted, I want to say the second round. I remember that. I was really confused why they went and did that, but it's clearly paying off for them.
It clearly paid off because you see what happened to Carson Wentz, and they were like, we're not taking any chances.
So
we have our guy right here.
I just don't want to see what happened to Wentz happen to him. That's my biggest concern, and that's why I want to see.
And that's why it's been different, because Carson Wentz was very. One thing I will knock about
he
Carson
also
Wentz's
had a
game,
bad O-line compared to.
He had a. I mean,
compared to
an
what
injured Lane
Hurts
Johnson
is,
and Jason Kelsey was basically the backbone. But now that they've really filled that line
you've got Mailata, you've got
Dickerson, you've got Cam Jurgens.
Exactly.
You've got a really good offensive line. But the whole thing is that Carson Wentz was very sloppy with his run. He was more. They tried to get him to throw the ball more, and his decision making was terrible, awful, god awful. And he went and he decided that he was going to scramble and run around. And what did he do? He got in a sloppy situation, got a little aggressive for a touchdown, dived between two of the largest men on the Los Angeles Rams team, going for a touchdown. One went one way, one went another way, one above, one below the knee, and tore his ACL, MCL, and he was out. And being there as an Eagles fan, watching that game in person, everyone was
heartbreaking.
We were just all just like. And that that's just the perfect summary of an Eagles season, and that's why we never win the Super Bowl. But anyways, that's besides the point. It's just these lists. It's these lists that always put these guys on pedestals, that puts these guys on downwards trends that are just like they're using like these stats that are very hard to compare to other people to justify putting down other players or putting other players on pedestals.
Exactly.
And I saw a list today, just to backtrack to Jalen Hurts a little bit, that said that Jalen Hurts wouldn't even be in the top 10 of quarterbacks after the season.
Where does that
from?
Asinine.
Where's the basis on that?
That is so.
And it's had like Jordan Love in that top list. Okay,
Jordan Love hasn't even proved himself.
Thank you, jinx, personal jinx.
God, I'm gonna die. But that's so aggravating. You have an MVP runner up and not even gonna be top 10. That's abysmal. They should be fired for that. I'm sorry. I would come for heads as an executive if I ever had to see that.
Yeah, and I've seen it a few times. It's not just one list.
But this goes for anyone in the sports world. Like, just take out the players list for a second. Like, talk about all the lists that you see on social media. Talk about all the lists that you make with your friends. Like how like how we would talk like right now, right? Who would you say would be the most credible person or group of people that would make a list? Who is like?
Does it depend on the sport, or is it just
because it low-key might depend on the sport. Depending on how much brain damage some of these players get, I wouldn't trust them.
Okay, well, obviously we're not going to say players, but okay, you guys have been going on this for a while, so yeah, football. Like, give a short, sweet answer. Who is the most credible person or group of people that can actually make a very very accurate list. And
at this point, AI might be the best. Because, like, I've seen some good AI lists that are very just general.
oh,
But
artificial intelligence.
I honestly just also
I
said
could
that as a
honestly,
joke,
I
but
would
I
say,
don't think there's
I would say
single-
retired coaches. I would
Okay,
say coaches
that's a
who
good
have
one.
Yeah.
have been out of their positions for a long time but still know the game better than anybody else. You know, my Jimmy Johnsons, my you know, if he was still around, Bill Walsh, God rest his soul. You know, Belichick, when he does retire, I'd take his opinion very well.
Andy Reid when he retires.
Andy Reid would be a great person I'd
He's
listen
seen a
to.
lot of players.
Oh, and on
So,
different teams.
I
So.
would also say Drew Brees. made a
Oh,
list.
students,
I would listen to
students of the game.
I would listen to Drew Brees give me a list, and he would convince me. And it's not because of the person he is; it's the player he was. And I just think I'm saying this is it's like a memorial for him, like, or something. But like, I would respect his opinion a lot more than if I just said, "Oh, this is a anonymous base of current NFL players."
The greats.
That you're
I would
not
say
gonna-
the greats.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right,
that's
Hall of
fair.
Famers for sure.
Because
Yes.
they're the pinnacle of their positions. They
Yes.
know what they're talking about because they
Yeah.
were there.
Former players would like
100%.
excellent.
And that's why I said the NBA on TNT cast either people who have
Because
been
you've got
around
two Hall of
professional
Famers just in the
basketball,
booth right
literally, and they're just like people who are passionate people. I mean, they're funny, passionate people who get the game. I mean, you see Shaq's literally a DJ on his side. Like,
there. His sets are great too, by the way.
amazing
Yeah.
sets. But that's besides. I mean, if you are taking like football, former players, hockey, I would also say former players. I don't know
Yeah.
that. I don't know that like. I prefer anyone who's not playing to make a list. Like, if like Jim Fox was like, "Here's a list of the greatest players this year," I'd be like, "Yeah,
He would make a
he'd
fantastic
make a
list.
great list."
And like that's pushing King's bias out of here.
Yeah,
Jim Fox would make a fantastic list.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not taking those guys on ESPN that are doing the national broadcast because most of those people don't
no.
know.
No.
Not for
No
hockey.
way. Okay, well, who are the former players on that panel? That's Chris Chelios
Yeah,
and who I don't even know who else is there.
I don't. Even
I
know.
forget, but Chris
Maybe
Chelios,
someone-
I'll take.
Maybe someone from. I want to say TSN, but those TSN guys are
Those
either,
TSN guys are pretty snarky when it comes to Canadians.
Some of some of them hold like a pretentious like Canadian team, like thing.
You know.
But some of them are also not
Those are-
Canadian players.
Yeah, those TSN people up in Canada, that like, those are like covering Leafs 24/7. What did Mitch Marner have for breakfast? Oh, he had 2 eggs. Oh, okay, he's going -2 today. But like,
Jesus, that's
it's like
Depressing.
yeah, exactly. So like, I feel like former players would work best with NFL, NHL, like how you said, with and like with NBA as well. But what about what am I missing? MLB,
baseball.
How would that would former?
I would say former players. You know, Big Poppy.
I just-
You know, David Ortiz. I'd take
He's
a great
good.
list. A-Rod to a degree. I'd listen to. If he were still around, I
like
think.
these former players that are like Hall of Fame.
But I would also say certain broadcasters who've seen it. I would take a Vince Scully list if he was still around any day of the week.
Oh,
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I
I'd
think-
take like Vince Scully, but I would also take like Vince Scully, like David Ortiz, like you said, like most of the. It's just hard because it's like I wouldn't take anyone from the steroid era.
Barry Bonds.
I wouldn't take like Barry Bonds or like
Sammy
Mark
Sosa.
McGuire, Sammy Sosa. Like as much as I loved watching them play, I don't think I would trust them to make a list because their perspective of the game is a little skewed. So maybe just like we said, like players that are in the Hall of Fame that have respect for the game, that like are really like
Pete Rose.
like that like just but like are students of the game.
Yes.
Like, I just think that goes across the board. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's like a specific group of people that aren't in the sport to give me a list at this point.
I would also honestly.
that I would just like I would trust and respect. I would give the time of day to a lot of lists, and I do, but like I don't think I could just like put full faith in like some of these people that are
No,
making lists
not at all.
in like their 9-to-5 jobs while they have nothing better to do.
Yeah, I just think some people need more respect
with their lists, and I think some people should never see the light of daytime television ever again.
Yeah, Cowherd is just like
Cowherd, Bayless, I think
Bayless,
needs to go. I think a lot of Stephen A's crew, other than JJ and Jalen Rose, whenever he's around, I think they need to just not talk. What's her name? Oh, Michaela Andrews.
Yeah, no thanks.
I would pay.
Sorry.
I might sound a little much here, but I would pay to never hear her speak again.
Right.
Because she at the draft would just bring up players.
Just name dropping.
Criminal history.
Oh.
Or like tragic
remember
event.
that.
She'd say, "Oh yeah, this guy's being investigated for the murder of his best friend." While he's literally being picked by an NBA team. Or
Dude,
or oh yeah, his dad died like 3 weeks ago. Like, dude, let the man have his moment. So some of these people just don't deserve to speak on TV or on podcasts or on whatnot. So there needs to be a shift in sports media, and we're getting there with the Pat McAfees, with the Kelsey brothers, with the urinating trees and Grossi, and we're getting there. But it's gonna
Could
take
be us, right?
one
Could
can
be
hope.
us, but you playing.
So there needs to be more respect in sports. You don't see it enough. There just needs to be more respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that you can just say whatever you want about these guys. You can't.
You can't.
You really can't. It's really sad.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty fantastic session for all of us here at Fourscore Sports. Again, I am Christian. I am joined here with Nicholas and Spencer.
What's up?
And we will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good one.
Oh yeah.